Good morning. Happy Sunday, beautiful people.
Oh, happy Sunday.
Happy Easter Sunday. Happy Resurrection Sunday. It is so good to be here with each and every one of you as we take this time to know and remember what is true, to celebrate the magnificence and significance of God in, through, and as you. And so we will begin our service as we always do with prayer. And so right here and right now, I invite you to just take a deep breath in. A breath in through your nose, out through your mouth, allowing yourself to be here now. And let's affirm together, I am here now.
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 Mother, Father, God, eternal, loving presence, we are here now. And I know, as we are here now, I know that you are here now. For you are the one mind, one power, one presence, one life, one divine cause and divine intelligence that is back of, behind, and underneath all things. And you are always available, always here, always now. For you neither come and you neither go. And so as I recognize that the fullness of God is available and present right here and right now, I also unify my heart and mind and soul with the reality that I am one with it and one of it. This is not just true of me, it is true of each and every one of you. It is true of each and every person that is connected here this morning or will connect to this live stream in any way, shape, or form at any time in time. We are one with it and one of it, and it is out of that awareness that I now speak this word in faith, that this time together, this gathering that we call the weekend service, this celebration that we call Celebration Spiritual Center, this celebration today that we call Easter Sunday, that we call Resurrection Sunday, is prosperous and is prospering us, is blessed and is blessing us, is abundant, and we are experiencing abundance in, through, and as it. I am grateful for the word that is coming forth. I am grateful and thankful for the meditation that is coming forth. I am grateful and thankful for the music that is coming forth, for I know that God is in it. And when God is in it, we must receive something powerful. When God is in it, we must receive that which will enable us to continue to live a magnificent and glorious and significant life. So it is now with confidence. It is now with a sense of rest and a sense of calm that I release this prayer, with a sense of expectation, knowing that God is already here. We do not have to sing or clap or dance to bring God in the building. But as we have put our attention on the reality that God is here, we now get to experience God in this God experience that we call CSC. So with joy and thanksgiving, I release this prayer. I release it back into the law, which is always in operation. And together we say, Amen.
Amen.
Ashe.
Ashe.
And so it is.
And so it is.
So it is. And so it is. And so it must be. I am so happy and so grateful and thankful, again, just to be here with each and every one of you this morning. Again, it is Easter Sunday, and so we're happy to be here with you. We know that many of you may be here for the very first time, and if that's true, we definitely want to stay in touch with you. First, welcome.
Welcome.
Hello. You can shout yourself out. You can shout your city, your location, your borough, your hood, wherever you're connecting in from, your country, wherever you're connecting from, and let us know. But also, we want to stay in touch with you. And so if you would like to stay in touch with us and know what's going on at CSC, you can join our mailing list. It's very easy to do. Just text the word welcome to 347-472-1078. Please just text the word welcome. No other information, emojis or extra signatures or hellos are needed. But if you just text that word, then you will receive a response, which has a link. Click that link and fill out all of the information and submit that. Once you submit that successfully, then you'll receive a reply saying that thank you, you're all set, you don't have to do anything else. We've noticed that some people are just texting welcome and then not clicking the URL and finishing the steps. And so it's important that you finish the steps. For those of you who are international and you don't want to text a Brooklyn number, which would make sense, the easiest thing is to go to our website, celebrationsc.org, and go to the section that says connect, and you can join our mailing list that way. But again, we look forward to staying in touch with you and hearing from you. And we're seeing you pop into the comments, which is awesome to see all of the wonderful places that you all are connecting in from on this Easter Sunday. So we have a few announcements and some things we want to share, and some new things and some reminders. So let's get into those, and then we can get into the meditation. So the first thing we want you to know about is prayer. We are a church that believes in prayer, a spiritual center that believes in prayer. It is the foundation of CSC. I said it a few weeks ago. Visioning was crucial and critical to the birth and the unfolding of CSC, but also was daily prayer. First, it began with PY and myself, daily prayer right here in this apartment. And then as we expanded and expanded our launch team, we gathered together in prayer at this very same number. I said, this is why I don't want to change the number, because there's a significance and a vibration that's happening here. So every Wednesday morning, 7 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, you can call in. We share a reading that day, and then we get into prayer. Either one of our prayer champions leads us in prayer, or PY or myself. There's also a playback number. So if for some reason you can't make it live, which is understandable, you can call in at any time and access that number. It's very easy to do. Just call the number, enter the access code, and then wait. You don't have to enter any other numbers or any other codes, and the most recent prayer will play. I can't say it enough. I mean, of course, we say it every week, but this is huge. This is powerful, right? It's incredibly powerful. It's a wonderful anchor for your week. It's a wonderful anchor for your day. I encourage you to create the momentum around that and develop the habit of joining together in prayer on Wednesday morning.
Yes, we look forward to being there with you and knowing the truth with you and for you.
Yes, yes. Now, we understand that you may have a prayer request, and so you can always send an email to prayerchampions@celebratioSC.org. No matter what the prayer request is, it may be for yourself, it may be on the behalf of a loved one or a friend. Email that to us and see yourself releasing it and letting it go, so that you're creating the space to receive the answer and moving yourself out of fear, doubt, and worry. Again, that's prayerchampions@celebrationsc.org. It is received by both of us, the pastors, and all of our prayer champions, and we hold the space and know the truth with and for you. And I'm sorry, this image is just beautiful.
I was going to say, I'm looking at this image. I'm like, wow, this is beautiful.
These marla beads are just
They're
beautiful.
just beautiful.
Sorry, I just had to.
I was thinking the same thing, actually.
And so the next, let's see, the next thing. Oh, before we get to that, okay, I'm sorry, I'm excited about the new news. Yes, on April 18th, the third Sunday, every third Sunday is God Talk Sunday at Celebration Spiritual Center. This is an opportunity to ask questions. And let me make sure y'all can see this. This is an opportunity to ask questions. We recognize that these New Thought principles are wonderful, the metaphysics is wonderful, and then there's life, right? And how life shows up for each of us individually. And so sometimes it's hard to know, how do we apply these things? We also have come to understand that many of us are misapplying principles and beating ourselves up and creating shame and guilt and moving from one type of fundamentalism, whether it was Christian, Muslim, or whatever, and then making New Thought your new fundamentalist home, right? And so we actually want to support you in not doing that.
One of the things that we believe in is practical spirituality. And so if these teachings, sacred or modern teachings, do not support you in your daily living, then you need to rethink them or get information and insight on them so that they can be applied to your life.
Absolutely.
And we love God Talk Sunday. I think I said in God Talk Sunday, the gloves come off. It's an opportunity to talk about whatever is on your mind.
It's true. It's true. So bring your questions, right? You may hear something in the sermon. You may hear something that we say or in previous sermons, or you're just trying to figure out, you're in a place in your life and you're trying to figure out what your next steps are, or need clarity around something. We're here to support you. It's free. It only happens once a month, and because we are virtual, it only happens on Zoom. And in order to get the Zoom link and password, you have to be on our mailing list. That email goes out every Friday. It's in every email. So again, for those of you, if you're a first-time guest, let me go back to that. I can show you. Yeah, if you're a first-time guest and you're like, oh, wait, this God Talk thing sounds awesome. I want that information. Well, you need to join the mailing list. And so here you go. Text welcome to 347-472-1078. You'll be on the mailing list, and then you'll get that email, right, which is important. So that's God Talk Sunday. Happens on the third Sunday on the 18th. Mark your calendars. Be there, 1 p.m. after service. Now, the next thing, and this is what I was getting ahead of myself, is we announced last week that we're going to be doing a new Truth Sunday Masterclass. And the new Truth Sunday Masterclass, we are going to do a deep dive. We're going to go through page by page, paragraph by paragraph, and offer some powerful insight and teaching on a very foundational text, a New Thought text, The Game of Life and How to Play It by Florence Scovel Shinn. Florence Scovel Shinn is no joke. She's bad. She pulls no punches. She ain't playing with y'all. The truth is the truth, and it's always the truth. And this is how you use the truth, and this is how you speak the word. Now, I know that many of you have read this book. Some of you have studied it with me in 90 Days to Greatness, but we're going to take it deeper. One of the things we think that's really awesome that we have the opportunity to do is sort of bring class to more people in this way, right? Normally this would be a paid class, but because we are virtual, we want to offer this to everyone and use this virtual space on Sundays to do that. So we got game, right? We were talking at first, we were going to say who got game, but the truth is it's more affirmative to say we all got game. We know how to play the game of life. And so we're going to dig deeper into that through this reading and through this teaching.
Absolutely. And if you were with us last year for the Thrive Master Series, you know how we do. If there's anything in this text that is problematic or needs to be reframed for current times, we will do that as well. But it's also nice to have a female voice.
Yes.
And to teach from a female voice.
Yes,
so
yes.
It's awesome.
Yeah. So We Got Game starts next Sunday. You can get the book. It's available, via all of the electronic devices. You can order it from Amazon. This particular version we're showing you is a more recent but complete edition. So you can look for this version, but any version of the text will work. It's in public domain, so a lot of different people have published it. So if you go to Amazon, you'll see all of these different versions. And once you get the book to prepare for next week, just read the first chapter, which is entitled The Game. And so we'll
Why do I feel like I need some background soundtrack going, like 70s or something right now?
Yes.
Or Spike Lee.
Yeah, right. That'd be awesome. So we're so excited about this. We got game. I think it's important that we still understand what's going on and how to interact with these laws as we're still in a pandemic. Right? How do we still interact with these laws? And there are folks that are unemployed. How do we interact with these laws? And many of you are looking for new employment. How do we interact with these laws? And we're behind on our rent, right? Like all of these things, real life is happening, right? But principle is real, right? The law is real.
Absolutely.
And so we learn to make use of it.
And so this masterclass will be another 12-weeker, at least 12 weeks.
Yeah. 10 to 12 weeks.
10 to 12 weeks.
Yeah.
We'll see how it goes. So for the next couple of months at least, we will be taking it chapter by chapter. So please join us.
Yes.
It's going to be good.
Yeah. All right. So that's exciting. And so now it is time.
It is time.
For meditation, I believe. And PY is going to lead us ever so wonderfully.
Ah, yes. It's beautiful to be here with you, to start a new month, a new meditation, affirmation, a new time to remember the truth of ourselves and connect to it. And I love this image because of the flow, because we're in nature, because it's spring, and we are alive just as nature is alive. And so our theme for this month is, I am alive in God. We are alive just as the birds, just as the water is flowing. There is nothing within us that is not connected to the truth, that is not empowered by this truth and this knowing. And anywhere that we feel stuck, we close our eyes and we remember that we are alive, that we are awake, aware, and connected, and we remain as God created us. And we use our time during meditation to affirm truth, to let go of what no longer serves us, but to do something very powerful, and that is to experience God. As I like to say, you could have read every sacred text. You could be able to recall and regurgitate every word. But until you feel God, your own personal relationship with God, whatever you call it, it is just information that you have retained. And we want it to be an experience that is alive, just as you are in God. So, let's prepare ourselves to practice, to feel the aliveness within us. So go ahead, right where you are, look around. Take your surroundings in and know that you are safe. Whether you are seated upright in a chair, on your sofa, or upright in your bed, know that this place, this time, is sacred because it is an opportunity for you to experience your connection. You are alive in God, in infinite intelligence, in abundance, in power, in truth. And from this knowing, accepting this as reality, close your eyes and take the journey inward. It's almost as if the moment we close our eyes, we remember the truth of our very being. The moment we close our eyes, our breath begins to soften. Our body begins to relax. And we accept the aliveness that is flowing through us right now. Just as the waterfall flows, the breath flows, the energy flows, because you are alive in God. Let's take a few moments here, a few rounds of breath, to just notice the aliveness. Notice the breath flowing. Just as we make no judgment of the waterfall's flow, we make no judgment of our breath and its flow, whether it appears to be deep or shallow. It is moving and alive. Just notice now. Beautiful. Because it is ours to do, we can take conscious control of this energy, and we can permit it to go wherever we choose. And so we use the energy that is flowing on the prana, the breath, and bring our focus to the low belly now. Breathe into the low belly. On the inhale, expand on the count of 4. Inhale. Hold it there. Count of 4. Open the mouth and release on a count of 4. Again, inhale into the low belly. Count of 4. Hold it there. Count of 4. And relax the jaw and sigh it out. Count of 4. Beautiful. Inhale into the low belly, up through the rib cage, feeling the aliveness of the breath expanding the front and the sides and the back of the body. Hold it there. Open the mouth, relax the jaw, and release it. Let it go. Again, In through the low belly, up through the rib cage, expanding, making more room for the aliveness that is God. Hold it at the top there. And sigh it out. Let's extend that breath even more, elongating it in through the low belly, up through the rib cage, up to the heart. That healing altar, that place of connection, center of the chest, hold it there. Sigh it out now. I am alive in God, and that energy is flowing, and I feel it just as I feel the breath, feeling the low belly expanding and extending up through the heart. Hold it at the top. And releasing. And as we release and make room, our body begins to relax. So let's practice a few rounds of this beautiful, alive, full breath on our own. Inhaling through the nose, and now exhaling through the nose. This will be the pattern of breathing for the remainder of our time. Let's feel alive in God now and breathe together. Last round. Beautiful. Extending that breath throughout our body, extending and sending the energy to open places that appear to be blocked. Send the energy and the breath into the feet now. Relax the feet. Surrender them to the floor, to the earth beneath, and to love at the center of the earth. I am alive in God. I am connected to all that is. I feel it viscerally right here and now. Sending that energy now up through the soles of the feet, across the ankles. Relax the ankles now. Continuing to feel the aliveness flowing across the shins, up the shins, the calves. I permit and allow the aliveness of God to fill me. Relax the shins. Relax the calves. Energy flows across the knees now. Relax the knees. There might be a slight chill as we make room for the breath to move. There might be more awakeness, more aliveness flowing. Let it flow across the calves, the shins, the knees, and now across the thighs, the glutes, and the hamstrings. Feels good to be alive in God. Relax the thighs, relax the glutes, and the hamstrings now. And as we surrender the lower half of our body, we take this energy that is being summoned, gathered, activating each chakra as it flows up. This energy rises, and we permit it to rise and balance every aspect of our body. It flows up, 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 up. up and out the crown of our head. Just as the sun rises, this energy, aliveness rises in us to greet this new day, to remind us of the truth of our connection and the symbols above us all. It is the energy that holds the planets in place, the energy that created every galaxy known and unknown. And we are alive in it. Give permission now for that energy to flow back down through the crown, across the third eye, allowing you to speak words that are alive in your truth, across your shoulders and down your arms. And as it flows, the shoulders relax and unobstructed, it moves out the fingertips now. See yourself in your mind, alive, available to experience God. Beautiful. And as we prepare for our silent time, go ahead and scan the body. Notice if there's still anywhere that there is resistance or holding on to the past or constricted flow of breath or energy. Send God there. Send love there. We want to be an open, alive vessel for creativity, for abundance, and for love, because we are alive in God. And as the mind has the tendency to do, thoughts may come and they may go. We make no judgment of them. They cannot permit or discontinue or disconnect us from the truth of our being. We allow the mind to be the mind. But when we become aware, bring yourself back to this reality, this experience. I am alive in God. You take the inward journey. I will monitor the time. The next time you hear my voice, it will be to summon our return. But for now, rest and remember, you are alive in God now. with our eyes still closed. We enjoy this feeling of connection. We enjoy the feeling of relaxation. Relaxation can exist at the same time as aliveness because they are one and the same. We experience God in the peace. We experience God in the activity. We experience God every time we close our eyes and affirm the truth. I am alive in God. With our eyes still closed, we enjoy these final moments of internal, and we bring it with us out into the world, out into our day, out into our conversations. We are eternally alive in God. And anytime we need to remember, we can close our eyes again, bring ourselves back to this feeling, and remember the truth. Let's begin to make our return now by signaling the body. Maybe we elongate the breath. Maybe we wiggle the toes or the fingers. Whatever feels right for you. Stop the movement and plant the palms on the tops of the thighs now. And if it feels good, maybe you rub the thighs to awaken them as well. The knees. Beautiful. Stop the movement. Plant the palms. Inhale, draw the shoulders up by the ears, nice and easy. Release the breath and slowly relax the shoulders. 2 more rounds. Inhale. Shoulders up by the ears. Exhale. Shoulders back and down. Last time. Inhale, draw the shoulders up by the ears. Shoulders back, release the breath. Draw the palms together at heart center. Lightly touch the thumbs into the sternum. Nice and easy. Bow the chin to the fingertips. Pausing here with the eyes closed just to feel the breath. Feel the aliveness that is the breath flowing across the fingertips. Feeling the opening in the spine and the base of the neck. Feeling completely connected. Knowing that we are alive in God. Slowly flutter the eyes open, nice and easy, soft gaze. Find a point on the floor in front of you or directly in front of you, whichever feels best and easy. Inhale, raise the chin. Raise the gaze. Release the breath. Namaste.
Yes, 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 yes. Thank you, PY.
You're welcome.
Awesome, awesome. Well, it is Easter Sunday, and so and we don't have a specific series, but I am going to bring a Easter message this morning. And before we tap into the Easter message, we're going to hear from Soul 21. It's a song that I realized recently that we haven't heard in all of this time as we have been in the midst of our virtual services. So I pray that this song brings you joy, and CSC, Soul 21 always brings joy. Love this song. Love those singers. So after this song, I will bring the Easter sermon.
Looks good in me, because God is always working through me. God is good. God is working. Ooh. God is good at and feels so good in
Yes, yes, yes. Oh, yes. God looks good as me. That was from Pride service in June of 2019. Many of you remember that service, and Bishop Yvette Flunder was our special guest for that service. It was really powerful, really awesome. Thank you, Soul 21. Thank you, Nadia. As I always say, I get to hear the song first as the songwriter, and then Soul 21 supports me in bringing it bringing it to life. Shout out to the CSC band, Frank and Ben and Zane and Carlton. I look forward to being able to create and make music with all of you again when we can do that safely. So it is Easter Sunday. Let me just turn this down. Okay. So it is Easter Sunday, and I do have a message to share with each and every one of you. I find it fun to do Easter sermons. There's definitely a challenge because the Easter story hasn't changed, right? And so there's the challenge of what new can be said. And after all of these years, we opened on Easter Sunday, and I'll always remember that sermon, All Things Rise Again, which was a powerful sermon. And we've taken a journey throughout the 8 years of CSC. I invite you can go to YouTube. We have a whole playlist that breaks down the metaphysics and the allegory of spring and Easter and the resurrection and Passover. So there's so much more information. And of course, I can't tell it all in just one sermon, but I do want to just warn you, and I think I end up doing this before every Easter sermon. This is not going to be a traditional Easter sermon. All over the country, right, people will be celebrating the idea of Jesus dying for their sins, or celebrating that Jesus sacrificed himself, or celebrating the power of the blood, all of these sorts of things. That's not what this sermon is going to be about. That's not what you're going to get at CSC. So I hope you found yourself in the right place. If you were looking for something along those lines, this is not going to be the sermon for you. But what I am going to do is offer some insights on the resurrection story. I am going to take you into the text and uncover some insights that can impact our lives today, and we can make use of it. So is that all right? You can just let me know in the comments, say yes, yes, or that's all right, or go ahead, Pastor, or I'm with you, Pastor, whatever it may be. I just want to make sure we're in the right space. I want to say in the right room, but this virtual space that we're in. This is what we're going to be talking about. And so the first thing I want to do is take you into the four Gospels, Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, what are called the canonical Gospels, right? And kind of take you into my own personal resurrection study. And this is something that I do every year. I revisit the text, I reread it. I try to reread it with fresh eyes, recognizing that there are just things I may have never seen or may not have noticed, word choice here or there. And so one of the first things that's very important when you're looking at Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John and the accounts of the resurrection is that they are not quite the same. They don't align. And there are discrepancies and contradictions between them. Right? So first we start with Matthew. Now, many of you know the Matthew story because in Matthew there was a great earthquake, right? This is sort of the middle of the night, Saturday night going into Sunday. There was an earthquake, and then the stone was rolled away. And so then Jesus was able to walk out of the tomb. And according to this account, according to the story, this all happened before Mary Magdalene and Mary, the mother of James, arrived to the tomb on Sunday morning. Those are important details because those details aren't found anywhere else in any of the other accounts, right? And again, an earthquake, and the stone was rolled away by an angel of the Lord. That's one of the stories I remember hearing as a kid. I remember seeing like a cartoon where there was an earthquake and a really strong angel rolled the stone away. Okay, and then the two Marys come to the tomb, and the tomb is empty. Okay, now in Mark, there's no earthquake, there's no angel, and as Mary Magdalene and Mary, the mother of James, are going to the tomb, they're like, we need to go to the tomb, but who's going to roll the stone away for us? But when they got there, they found that it was already moved. Now in this story, instead of there being an angel, it's described there was a young man sitting in the tomb dressed in a white robe. And then the young man begins to have this conversation with them, basically letting them know that Jesus is risen and go tell the 11 disciples, right? The other thing that's interesting here, in Matthew, we had Mary Magdalene and Mary, the mother of James. In Mark, we have 3 women. We have Mary Magdalene, Mary, the mother of James, and a woman named Salome. Okay. The other thing that's interesting about Mark actually has 2 endings to the story. So the first ending ends at Mark 16:8, and everything that I just said, that's all that happens. They go to the tomb, they're walking to the tomb, and they're like, who's going to roll the stone away for us? They get there, the stone is already rolled away, and according to the account, there's a young man in a white robe sitting in the tomb. And then he's the one that tells them that, Jesus is risen, go tell the disciples. End of story. But the second ending of Mark begins at 16:9. We get a different account because according to this account, it says, after Jesus rose, he appeared first to Mary Magdalene, and she went out and told those who had been with him, but they did not believe him. What's important here? The previous account had 3 women. In the second account in Mark, there is only Mary Magdalene. And she's told also not just to go to the disciples as in the 11, because that's very specific. That's something that was named. In most of the stories, they talk about the 11 because you all remember what happened, right? Judas is the one that first betrays Jesus, and Judas is the one that then, because of what he did, that's what starts the whole process of then Jesus being tried falsely, right? And the whole give us Barabbas thing. Judas, of course, feels guilty and he commits suicide, right? He hangs himself. And so now there are only 11 disciples. There are no longer 12. So what you read in these accounts, often it'll say, go to the 11, go to the 11. But in this second account in Mark, it says, go and tell those who had been with him, not just the 11. And they did not believe. Okay. So Matthew and Mark, those are 2 different stories, right? We got different women. There was an earthquake in one, and an angel in one. The other one, it's a young man. Very different stories. Now in Luke, we get something else. The story in Luke follows the general telling, beginning with Joseph of Arimathea, who is the one who has secured the tomb for Jesus. However, Mary and Mary are not named. Instead, in Luke, it just says the women, meaning all of the women who follow Jesus. And so when all of the women who follow Jesus, when they go to the tomb, then they are met by 2 men in what is described in the text as dazzling apparel. This is different than the angel in Matthew and different than the young man in Mark. Why? First, we're talking about 2 people now, right? And in this case, it says the women. Later, 3 women are named and counted amongst all of the women: Mary Magdalene, Joanna, and Mary, the mother of James. And then it says, and the other women. So we got some names here, names that we never find in the other accounts. We know Mary, of course, the mother of James and the mother of Jesus. We know Mary Magdalene, right? We have met her in other accounts. But again, we have this woman, Salome, who we have never heard of or met, but she's named here. And now we have another woman, Joanna, who we've never heard of or met. There's no other, in these 4 Gospels, there's no other information about these women. Okay. Then we have John. John begins in a similar fashion as before with Joseph of Arimathea. However, they add Nicodemus to this story because, Nicodemus was a friend of Jesus. And he's also added as a person who helps with the body because what Joseph of Arimathea did, he was sort of a benefactor of Jesus's ministry. Right, and he was considered a believer, and so he had purchased this tomb for Jesus, but then they had to do the work because remember, they were Jewish, right? They had to make sure that he was buried within those practices, and so Nicodemus helped him. Okay, again, Mary Magdalene goes to the tomb on Sunday after the Sabbath, but in this account, she goes alone and finds an empty tomb. And so this account is a little more dramatic if you can see it, right? So her good friend and teacher has been falsely accused, falsely assassinated. It was awful. It was terrible. And he's been buried, and she knows that he's been buried in the tomb, and so she's going to tend to his body to make sure everything is as it should be. And she goes there, and the tomb is empty. And she's like, wait, oh my goodness. And so what she immediately does is she runs back to the disciples. She runs back to the disciples to tell them what she saw. Oh my goodness, y'all, you won't believe this. The tomb is empty, right? Who knows what they thought happened? They might have thought somebody stole the body. But she went back to the disciples. And then according to this account, they all run back to the tomb together. Now, after they go back to the tomb together, there's, we can imagine, because the text doesn't say much, but there had to be conversation, there had to be some sadness, probably some anger. And then it just says that the disciples go back home, but Mary remained. This is Mary Magdalene. She remains weeping, according to the story. It is then that she is met by two angels in white who ask why she is weeping. She goes on to explain that they have taken the body of my Lord. So it's here, that's what I was talking about, right? This is so human, right? She's not even thinking like maybe something miraculous happened. She's thinking somebody stole his body. They have taken the body of my Lord. She is then asked by another man who she thinks is the gardener. This was set up earlier because it says that she was in a garden. When the writer explains that the new tomb where she was buried where he was buried was in a garden. When she realizes that it's actually Jesus, she exclaims, "Teacher," and he instructs her to go tell the disciples. Okay. Now, unfortunately, I just gave you a synopsis, right? And some very important details of Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. But unfortunately, we have heard everything that we've heard and learned. We've heard all of these varying details. If you've ever, for me, like growing up and going to Sunday school and all of that, we learn these stories. And each one of these details that I'm telling you, you're like, oh yeah, I remember that. No, I remember that. But when you put it all together, that can't be the same. It can't be one story, right? Because they contradict. One story, there was an angel. Another story, it was a young man. Another story, it was two men. Another story, it was two men in dazzling clothes. One of those men was actually Jesus. That's the only story that says that. In one story, there were three women: Mary Magdalene, Mary mother of James, and Salome. In another story, there was Mary Magdalene, Mary the mother of James, and Joanna, and other women. In another story, it was just Mary Magdalene by herself. In another story, Mary went to the tomb, then she went to the disciples, then they all came to the tomb. Details matter. Right? Details matter, and especially for an event that is significant as this. And so, although it is impossible to factually know what happened, what is presented in the resurrection account contains much spiritual wisdom and insight. And so in each telling, for me, there's something that's very significant. Mary Magdalene, Mary the mother of James, Salome, the women, Joanna. Something that's very significant to me about the resurrection account that I do not think gets enough attention is that the women were the first to receive the news of the resurrection. The women were the first to receive the revelation of the resurrection. And more importantly, the women were the first to speak this truth out into the world. Hello, somebody. Just take a breath on that. You may have never considered that. You may have never even heard that, because that's not how the story's told, right? You may hear the story that Mary Magdalene was there, or you may hear Mary, the mother of James, or the mother of Jesus was there. You may hear that, but you didn't hear that there was a whole beautiful gathering of women, right? Because I love the one account that says the women, and then it names Mary and Joanna. Another account, Mary and Salome. The women were the first to speak this truth to the world. And so why do I think this is significant? Well, in order to understand why this is significant, we have to ask, what is the feminine and what does it do? Now, why I think it's significant is because I recognize that all life comes through the feminine. All existence, spiritual or material, comes through the feminine. And so if the resurrection is about a new beginning, if the resurrection is about rebirth, birth can only be exclaimed and expressed through the feminine. Birth can only be talked about through the feminine. I can talk about birth, but the women know about birth. See, that's the difference, right? And so this was a knowing that was being expressed through Mary and Salome and Joanna and the other women. Birth can only be exclaimed and expressed through the feminine. And when I say what is the feminine, what am I talking about here? What is the feminine and what does she do? Because as I said, there's important spiritual insight, there's important spiritual wisdom here. Why would this resurrection story be told in this way? Why is it told in such a way that it's the women that receive the news and it's the women that tell the news or exclaim the news? Well, see, I understand something about the feminine principle, and I'll take you here to the Kabbalion and the chapter on the principle of mental gender. And in that chapter, we read the feminine principle has a much more varied field of operation than the masculine principle. The feminine principle conducts the work of generating new thoughts, concepts, ideas, including the work of imagination. Now, this is powerful right here. Just to consider this. The feminine principle, Mary and Salome and Joanna and the other women, conducts the work of generating new thoughts, concepts, ideas, including the work of imagination. See, what I understand to be true, what's so powerful about the information around resurrection, this information that truth cannot be destroyed, this powerful information that all that Jesus represented could never die, but must be born again and again and again and again. That was a new idea. That was a new concept, and that was something that required imagination. And so this is what the feminine does. And so if we look at this allegorically and we begin to look at this metaphorically, what we're starting to understand then is that this is demonstrating to us how the feminine operates in bringing a new idea, in bringing something forth into being that had never been experienced or expressed on the planet before. Now, I want to go a little deeper, because we can look at it this way. When we think about the feminine principle and the masculine principle, we have spirit, we have mind, and we have body. We have spirit, which is cause, we have mind, which is the medium, and we have body, which is the effect or the manifestation. Now, the spirit is the masculine principle, and the mind or the medium or the mode is the feminine principle. And what's so powerful about this aspect, the mind, the medium, or the mode? Because the mind is the knower. It is the law, as we talk about in New Thought. When we talk about we're working with the law, making use of the law, aligning with the law, that is the feminine aspect of this thing we call God, right? And so it is the knower, it is the law, it is the fabricator, the creator, that thing which makes things. And the interesting part about it, when we understand the attributes of it, this is when we say that God is omniscience, when we say that God is omnipotence, when we say that God is omnipresence, we're talking about the expression of God as the feminine. We're talking about the mother principle. We're talking about the she principle. And so omniscience, the knower, it is that thing that knows how to accomplish anything. There's no problem too big for the knower, for the feminine. Because again, what is this thing? It generates new thoughts, concepts, ideas, and is the work of imagination. There is nothing too big for imagination. There is nothing too grand for imagination. There is nothing even too complex for imagination. Omnipotence, all power. It is the doer. Again, there is nothing too big, nothing too hard, nothing too complex. There's nothing too large or too small. I'm reminded of, I love how Abraham Hicks always says that it's just as easy to manifest a castle as a button. That's the feminine speaking. That's the feminine speaking. And of course, we see this made manifest in my mind, and probably because it's Easter, but my mind is going to my grandmothers, and I'm sure many of your grandmothers are the same way. That just, they can make something out of nothing, right? There's nothing too small to the feminine, right? A couple ingredients turns into a powerful meal, right? some beans and some seasoned meat. Lord have mercy. You have a whole meal, some cornbread, right? And you feel like you've eaten something powerful, right? But those were just small ingredients. That's the power of the feminine. That's how the feminine shows up and operates. And then omnipresence, everywhere present, closer than my breath, closer than my hand. It's always with you. And I love this when I think about how even this outpictures in our expression as we think about the human form. Now, first of all, let's think about it, right? Being in your mother's womb, there's nothing closer than that, right? There's nothing closer than that. There's literally a tie, an umbilical cord that reflects that. Metaphysically and spiritually, at the level of consciousness, it's said that there's a golden thread that connects us to our mothers for all of our life. And one of the reasons that the grief experience at the transition of our mothers is so profound is because that in consciousness, it feels as if that cord has been cut. That energetic cord has been cut. And so the mother principle is always closer than our breath, closer than our hand. We're tied to her just as we were tied to our mothers in her womb through the umbilical cord. And so this is what we're talking about. When I'm saying what does the feminine do, and what is the feminine and what does she do, and why this is significant, when we understand that she is the knower, when we understand that she is the law, when we understand that she is the fabricator, she is the thing that gathers everything together and makes something, gathers things together that may not even seem like they go together and makes something, when we understand that she is the one that generates new thoughts, concepts, ideas, including the work of imagination. This is why I think it's significant that it was the women that received the revelation. It was the women that exclaimed and expressed the revelation. They were the first to receive the news. They were the first to receive the revelation of the resurrection. And they were the first to speak this truth to the world. Mind, or the feminine, receives from the spirit, the masculine, and then she goes to work and creates something new. She brings forth what did not exist before. Think about that. That's what your mother did. She brought forth what did not exist before. And this is what the feminine consciousness, as we understand God is Mother, Father, God, this is what it is always doing. And so my Easter message for you today is listen to the women. And when I say listen to the women, I'm not saying believe that Jesus rose from the dead. That's not what I'm saying. We're metaphysicians, right? So we're digging deeper below the surface layers of the story, right? Listen to the women. And why do I say that? Well, let's look at something. How did the men respond? Now, this is not a man bashing thing. I'm a man. I'd be bashing myself, right? So this is not men. I'm not bashing men. Because really we could say just the disciples, but they were all men, and that's significant. How did the disciples respond? In all of the accounts, except for John, all of the disciples doubted and did not believe the women. In every account. In Matthew, they doubted and did not believe Mary and Mary. In Mark, they doubted and did not believe Mary and Salome. In Luke, they doubted and did not believe Mary and Joanna and the other women. In John, they did not believe Mary and the other women. But what's interesting to me, like I said, in all of the accounts except for John, all of the disciples doubted and did not believe the women. In John, we get an interesting story. And this is, for me, what's interesting about this, and hopefully I'm supporting you all in just understanding a little bit about how to read the text and textual criticism. Because what we're reading in John is a synthesis in a way. Because in all of the other accounts, it was all of the disciples didn't believe the women, right, or Mary. In all of the other accounts, as I shared earlier, there was this idea of the 11 because the 12th disciple was Judas, and we know he's gone. But in the John story, what the storyteller has chosen to do, which is something that we see in storytelling all the time, even in biographical storytelling, is all of the doubt is now placed in one disciple's expression and experience. I say this happens in biographical stories all the time. You know, we watch movies that are, you know, based on real life or real life events, but normally what the writers of the story end up doing is consolidating some of the characters. And so they'll create one fictional character that represents a bunch of characters in that person's life. And so we watch the movie and we think she or he was a real person. Like if you watch Hidden Figures, Kevin Costner's character is not a real person, right? He was created as a synthesis, right, of a bunch of different people to push the story along and to represent, leadership at NASA. But he's not a real person. Okay? And so in this sense, we have Thomas, who is a disciple, but instead of having the doubt in the mouths of all of the disciples, now we have this infamous story of Doubting Thomas, which we all know the story of Doubting Thomas, right? That there was this one guy, this one disciple that just would not believe. And he didn't believe until he actually saw Jesus. And according to the story, Jesus shows him his hands, and he can see the imprints in his hands from where the nails had been. And in truth, it would have been the way crucifixion works. It would actually been here. We hear so often, you know, nails in his hands. That's not what they did. They nailed you here, right? But again, that's the way the story was told. But I think that's an important detail. So in all of the other accounts, it's the 11 that do not believe. Additionally, if we look even to the Gnostic text, which is interesting, if we go to the Gospel of Mary, which is one of the Gnostic texts, it goes even deeper because the disbelief was amplified. Because according to this account, Mary, who was considered the closest disciple to Jesus, for so many reasons, we don't know why. They could have been a couple, but we know that she revered him as her teacher. She had been given, according to the Gospel of Mary, secret teachings that even the rest of the disciples hadn't received. And so Jesus returns back to the disciples and shares a lot of things with them, and then he leaves because, you know, there's the whole ascension and he has to go back to the Father. And so they ask Mary to share some of the secret teachings, which she does. And it's deep, and it's like their minds are blown. But Peter was in his feelings, right? And he questioned and rejected the teachings because she's a woman, right? And then in that story, Levi defends her. So what we're seeing is that, and again, this is important when we understand how these stories are being told, that we can step back from it and see that it's important to know and understand that there was a great amount of doubt and disbelief. And they specifically doubted and disbelieved the women. The Gospel of Mary goes further because it specifically says that Peter doubted and didn't believe her because she was a woman, right? And so we have to put ourselves in the shoes of the disciples, right? A lot had happened. And it's interesting if you think about a group of people. What comes to my mind now while I'm smiling is like, although these guys weren't gangsters, right? They were a crew, right? And they were outside of the system, right? And so they had to protect themselves. Now, although they weren't gangsters, we know that they were willing to go to blows at any point, right? When they went to arrest Jesus, right, they pulled out a sword and cut off somebody's ear, you know. So we know like how these guys tended to roll. We also know that they were very close, right, and very close to Jesus and revered Jesus. And they were in a place of profound fear because their leader had been assassinated. They watched and witnessed. I mean, let's go back, right? Palm Sunday, where like everybody is rah, rah, Hosanna. Oh my goodness, Jesus is the man. Yay, right? They watched all of that. And, you know, they're kind of like, imagine coming in, right? You coming into town and everybody's like, yeah, that's my man. Yeah, that's my teacher. And it's cool, right? And then by the end of the week, one of your boys has betrayed him for money. And now he's being falsely accused. There's still another opportunity for him to be let go because Pontius Pilate, you know, knew he was innocent. So he brings him before the people. The same people that were like, rah, 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 Hosanna, were like, give us Barabbas, this known criminal, right? Like an awful human. That's who they wanted. So you have to understand the where the disciples were in that moment in their minds, right? We've all been in that place of extreme fear. We've all been in places of, not feeling like we can, not knowing who we can trust or who we can count on, right? And, looking over our shoulder, that's where they were at. And so they're hearing this information and it's like, yeah, I can't believe you. I would love to believe you. It would be wonderful. But I really can't believe what you're saying. It didn't make sense. It did make sense, though, because from their point of reference, from their point of logic, they could not ascertain how this could be possible. And the reason why I say we should listen to the women is because more often than not, we are just like the disciples. You've heard it said many times. You've probably quoted this spiritual axiom: the how is not your business. And while we can quote it and say it and know that the how is not our business, we spend most of our time trying to figure out how we're going to get the thing that we want, from thought to thing. We're trying to figure it out. We're trying to manipulate our way into manifesting something. We're always thinking about how, or I want this, but how, or I need this, but how, right? Or we're trying to dictate to source how we would like source to bring our good to us. Hello, somebody. See, the problem was that the disciples, what they're representing is, excuse me, all of their hows, all of their figuring it out, they couldn't figure it out. And so there was no way, this thing didn't make any sense to them. Not only that, they had their own desires or ways they wanted things to work out. Right? Because, again, many of them wanted to fight. Many of them really wanted to go to blows, right? Many of them wanted to do a whole bunch of other things. And so you're telling me that Jesus is free or he's resurrected, like he's alive? This doesn't make sense to me. What did I say about the feminine earlier? Because what I was saying about the feminine, I'm demonstrating to you that the feminine is the how. It's mind. It's the medium. The medium is, or mode, that's the how. Right? It's like the road that you travel to get to the thing. That's what the feminine is. It's the knower, the law, the fabricator. And what are her attributes? She is omniscience. The knower knows how to accomplish anything. She is omnipotence, all power. She's the doer. She has the power and capability to bring forth anything and to do it easily and effortlessly. But she's also omnipresence, which is important. Everywhere present, closer than my breath and closer than my hand. And that's why I love to say, and I affirm in prayer, this understanding that God is omnipresent. So God is with me in the mountain when I'm in my greatest joy, and God is right here with me in the valley when I'm in doubt and despair and just don't know what's happening next, right? And it's important because if she wasn't there, that would mean that we would have to go somewhere to get to her. But she's right here, right now. Now, here's what's powerful. Why do we say listen to the women? Because, see, that listening requires us to surrender. And what's interesting, according to the account and according to the story, when the disciples surrendered to the truth of the resurrection, they received power. According to one account, power from on high. In another account, it says Jesus breathed on them and they received the Holy Spirit. Right? And this is a representation of receiving power. This is a representation of receiving new capabilities. This is a representation of a reset. This is a representation of something new happening. This is a representation of rebirth. This is a representation of renewal. This is a representation of answered prayer. This is a representation of that thing, but the power from on high only comes through listening and surrender. We talk so often about the stages of spiritual consciousness, the 4 stages, and you've heard me and PY say, we're teaching stage 3 and 4 living. What is stage 3? It is the through me stage. What is stage 4? It's the as me stage, because we know that's where the power is. Envisioning, the life visioning process, which comes to us through Reverend Michael Beckwith, he teaches that we're not here to tell God what to do, but we're here to align with, to become a vessel for what God is already doing. And here's the thing. What God is already doing, it's always constructive. It's always beneficial. It's always life-giving. It's always prospering. See, we spend so much time trying to prosper rather than simply aligning, listening, and surrendering to God so that God can prosper us. When you really begin to live in this way, to listen and surrender and allow God to do God's work in, through, and as you no longer have to write down lists. Lists are wonderful, and writing down our goals and all of that good stuff. We teach it, we use it. It's part of the introductory experience of metaphysics. It's part of the introductory experience of new thought. It's part of the introductory experience of understanding that there is a law of attraction and how it works and what it does. And we use all of these things. We make use of it to move to the next understanding, which is that, oh, I don't have to make it happen. I don't have to manipulate. I don't have to write down lists. I don't have to tell God what I want. I don't have to tell God how I want it. But if I listen and align and surrender, then I literally become just as the feminine expresses, right? Then I can give birth to anything. All of a sudden I receive power. And I can do any good thing. I can have any good thing. Why? Because that's what it's always doing. But that requires listening to the women. That requires listening to the feminine. That requires listening to this power that I'm talking about today. And I want to leave you with this thought. I want to leave you with this idea. Something that I tend to share each time on Easter, and the significance of it here is definitely related to this sermon. Easter occurs at the same time every year. Now, I know some of you are saying, well, that's not really true, Pastor Greg, because sometimes Easter's in March, sometimes Easter's in April, sometimes it's mid-April, sometimes it's the beginning of April. So that's not true. It does not occur at the same time every year. But actually it does. And this message that I'm sharing with you today is encoded within when and how we choose the date of Easter. The date of Easter does not occur because it's the day that Jesus rose from the dead, right? The way we know when Easter is happening is Easter occurs on the first Sunday after the first full moon in spring. Now, there's a lot of reasons for that, getting back into some of the astrological meanings and astrotheological meanings, but there's just one thing specifically that I want to talk about today. Easter Sunday always occurs on the first Sunday after the first full moon in spring. For those of you that follow the cycles of the moon, you'll know that the full moon, the first full moon in spring was just this past Sunday. Yes, yes. And of course, we know that we're in spring. Yes, yes. And so this Sunday had to be Easter. No other Sunday could be Easter Sunday except for this one. And so what is this telling us? The moon represents the feminine. The message of resurrection comes to us. This story comes to us when the moon is full and ready to receive the seed to create, nourish, nurture, and bring forth new life. This message occurs in the season of new birth. Listen to the women. The message is everywhere. We don't get Easter without the feminine. Cosmically, astrologically, and biblically, according to these accounts, because in every account, it was the women that received the revelation, it was the women that received the news of the resurrection, and it was the women that were the first to speak this truth and bring it into being. And so in a sense, then these women gave birth to a new expression that were these disciples, right? They had a little bit of power. They had a little bit of something when they were walking with Jesus. But, metaphorically and allegorically, they were reborn through these women. The message is all around us and within us. Listen to the women. New life comes when you listen to her. Rebirth comes when you listen to her. Power comes from on high when you listen to her. Listen to the women. And on that, I will simply say, amen, ashe. And so it is. So it is.
Yes, yes.
Yes,
PG
yes.
brought it today. Did he not? Listen to the women. Listen to that power that is always receptive, that is always willing and able to birth new ideas, concepts. Listen to that feminine energy. And for the women, listen to yourself.
Yes, yes.
Because many times we doubt our ability, our skill, that which is coming through us from the divine. Listen, know that what you are connected to is powerful and full of power. Beautiful message. Yeah. Each Easter, he brings it.
Thank you.
And it's always new and fresh and a new take on it. And if this is your first Easter, go back and watch Easter because they're always powerful. Thank you, PG.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm mindful of our time. It is time to prepare for giving. And to give here at CSC, it's very easy. You can go to our website, celebrationsc.org/give, and you can text to give. The number is there on your screen, 347-744-9500. There is a $10 minimum to text to give. That's my favorite way to give because it's quick and easy, and I like doing it that way. But whatever works for you, whenever it works for you, what's most important is that you give what feels good. Giving must feel joyful. It must be matched with that emotional vibration, that emotional current and currency of joy, of more than enough, of I can't think of some other words right now, but joy and just feeling good. It's important. And part of why that's important is we're unlearning old patterns of belief and behavior. I know that many of us were raised with a level of fear around giving. I remember every Sunday, hearing the verse that was used intentionally. It was used in a good way, right? The intention behind it was good, but will a man rob God? Yet you have robbed me. And so it was this, we were like, oh my God, I'm robbing God. Like I have to give. Like I don't want to rob God, right? And so that energy had made me anxious, right, and worry. And then it taught me later in life that I was starting to give even when I couldn't afford it, right? I was giving amounts out of obligation, and I was hurting myself. But I thought, well, I don't want to rob God. I'll figure it out, but I need to make sure God is good.
And God gets his.
Right? The infinite, abundant God that makes all money needs my little whatever money. So we recognize that there's so many things that we need to heal, right? Other churches, it was just about the obligation. They read your name out, during the business meeting, who gave and who didn't give. Other churches put your names up, on display. And so we are grateful that we get to support so many people in healing that. And so your giving should be tied to joy. End of conversation. Right? And when you give from that place, then that's how you experience the full, total, complete blessing of giving. And so that is why we affirm this truth. All the money that I use returns to me multiplied. In a never-ending cycle. Of increase. And enjoyment. So again, we invite you to give today if you're able, or give throughout the week when you are able. But we recognize that there is a blessing in giving. It's real. As you give, you receive. And it all comes back to you. But it must be given in joy. So we pray that you all enjoy the rest of your Easter Sunday and whatever you choose to do safely, We cannot say it enough. Please continue to be safe. Please continue to follow the guidance and guidelines. We are not, it's not over, right? We are still very much in this pandemic. And so we want more than anything for each and every one of you to be safe and to be well. For those of you who will join us on Wednesday in the prayer call, we look forward to being together there. Otherwise, we look forward to seeing you all next week as we begin the new Truth Sunday Masterclass. We got game, and we will be doing a deep study of the game of life and how to play it by Florence Scovel Shinn. So please go out and get that book. Read the first chapter, the game, and our first section. I don't think she names them as chapters, but read that first section and be ready for some good stuff. There's some things that actually in that first chapter that parallel what we're talking about today. She talks about the three aspects of mind, which is another way of talking about what I talked about today with the mind, medium, and effects. So we'll dig deeper into that, and we'll also have a email address that you can send questions to as well. We'll give you all that information next week.
Yes. Looking forward to it.
Yes.
Have an amazing Sunday, everyone. We love you all.
Love you. All right. Bye for now.
Bye for now.